Hey y'all, it's Lauren. Welcome back. A few weeks ago was World Cancer Day and I really wanted to make a video on that topic. I shared a video with y'all last year about my cancer diagnosis, my diagnosis story, and I really wanted to make another video similar to that one on the same topic. I posted that video when I was 1 month into my treatment and my diagnosis, and now I am over 1 year in remission, so I've definitely learned a lot. I've grown a lot, and I really wanted to just give hope to people that are in the midst of a diagnosis, in the middle of treatment, that there is life and health again after cancer. And I just want to share some advice and some experiences with you guys. If you want to hear my story, then just keep watching this video. So August 23rd, 2019, I was diagnosed with cancer. I was in the ER, and at first my oncologist came in the room and told me that I had a mass in my chest and they were almost certain it was lymphoma. So I knew that I had cancer. I just didn't know an exact diagnosis yet. They still had to do more testing. My family was with me in the emergency room and they immediately started crying, but I just froze and I did not know how to react, and I think that's okay. Everybody reacts in different ways. Some people cry, some people may laugh, and some people just completely freeze, and I was one of the people that just froze in that moment. As soon as the word cancer came out of his mouth, my mind just started spiraling out of control. I was thinking so many thoughts. So that summer I had also just graduated high school, so I had previously applied to a bunch of universities that I wanted to go to, and I got accepted into none of them. I was so discouraged, and I had ended up planning to go to community college, but I got diagnosed 3 days before classes were supposed to start, so we had to put college on hold, everything else on hold, so I ended up having to take a whole year off of school. But I will finish this part of the story later in the video because there is a happy ending, trust me. So I wanted to talk about some of the symptoms I had. I had arm swelling, I had extreme fatigue, I had a lump under my arm. I actually still have it because it wasn't like a swollen lymph node. It was a vein that kind of like bursted, I guess, because of the tumor that was compressing on my heart and my arm area. It hasn't gone away. I don't think it will. So it's a little different than a lymph node, but it was still a lump that was very concerning. I also had veins popping out of my chest, not like actually popping out, but they were really prominent, especially down my arm. And when I say arm swelling, my arm would literally turn blue. When I would use it a lot, if I was, you know, in the shower washing my hair, if I was doing other things, like it would get swollen and turn blue. It was very bad and very noticeable. I also had shortness of breath. I was an athlete in high school, and after I stopped working out, I just thought I was really out of shape, but literally I would run up the stairs and I would be like having to get down and catch my breath, which was not normal at all. So I definitely had shortness of breath. And when I say extreme fatigue, I don't mean just feeling a little tired. I mean like 3 to 4 naps per day, which was not normal for me. I thought it was just kind of because all of my friends had started school already and I was waiting to start classes, so I was just bored and decided to sleep. But looking back, I was definitely more tired than usual, and that should have been a warning sign. I also had a really bad cough. I forgot to write this down, but I had a really bad cough. It started in like July and it was just a dry cough. I never coughed anything up. Sorry, that's kind of gross, but like usually when you have a cough, it's mucusy, and I just wasn't coughing up anything. Also, when I would lay in my bed in the morning on my back, I would literally feel gurgling or hear gurgling in my chest, which is very creepy when I look back, and I'm like, how did I not totally freak out? But again, I thought it was just like mucus and stuff I had to cough up because I had a cough, but that wasn't the case. So all those symptoms were very concerning. I ended up going to the doctor after I had that lump under my arm. We got blood work done. I went to a cardiologist to see if I had a heart problem, and on his machine, I think he could see that there was fluid around my heart and that I needed to go to the ER, so he referred me into the ER, and that's when I got diagnosed. Going back, I just remember thinking, well, whatever this is, it's obviously not good because there's not a simple explanation to it. Like, they're having to do more and more tests, so prepare yourself for the worst because it's probably not going to be good, and it wasn't at all. So after I was diagnosed in the ER, I was transferred to a bigger hospital via ambulance. Both my parents stayed with me that night. We got settled into our rooms. I could not sleep that night, I remember, because I had so many wires around my chest and just everywhere. They had to monitor my heart because I had a bunch of cardiovascular issues because the tumor was so big. I look back at the x-rays, I'll try to put up a picture, and my heart was so squished. It was just terrifying to think that I was sleeping in those conditions at home, and like I could have have easily just stopped breathing in my sleep and not made it. I remember desaturating, which basically means your oxygen levels go way down. Your normal one is like 97 or above. Mine was dropping down to the 80s and the 70s when I would lay on my left side. So I remember one night a nurse had to come in and literally give me an EKG at 2 a.m. because they were so worried of how much I was desaturating. Like, they had to make sure my heart was doing okay. It was going through a lot. These issues also affected how I would be getting my biopsy procedure done. Because I was having so many cardio issues, they did not feel comfortable putting me to sleep during my biopsy, so I got the lucky opportunity to have my biopsy procedure wide awake so I could just experience it all. It was not fun. In fact, it was very traumatic. During that procedure, I also had a PICC line placement, and a PICC line is basically a little tube, a tiny tube that goes into a vein in your arm. I got mine on my arm right here. Still have a little tiny scar. It went in right there and it went close to my heart, and that's how I would receive my chemo. So I had that. It didn't hurt at all. They put local anesthetic on my arm so I wouldn't feel it going in. But then we got to the biopsy. I remember just laying flat on this cold operating table. I remember the doctors taping my legs down and taping my arms down so I didn't move. I wasn't going to, but still that I felt very trapped and very stuck. I had a child life nurse with me, thank goodness. She explained every step of the procedure, and I'm so glad that I requested one of those nurses because I like to be in the know, especially when something's going on with me. So if I didn't have her there, I would just be constantly asking questions like, oh, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? So she took me step by step, everything that they were doing, and that was very helpful. So if you're able to get treated at a children's hospital and they have a child life nurse, I totally recommend you request one because it is so helpful just knowing what's going on around you, and it definitely helped the experience be a little better knowing what was going on. So they started by doing these numbing needles in my chest, which hurt so bad. I just remember they would hit these nerves by my rib cage and like my chest, and it would just be this horrible feeling. Then after they kind of numbed the area, which didn't help much at all, it still hurt like crap. They went in with the biopsy needle. They went in 10 times, and every time they would put the needle in, it was huge. There'd be a loud clicking sound, which would be them collecting the sample of the tumor, and they would pull it back out, and it just felt like so much pressure. I just remember at the end my hands had been clenched like this the whole time because it hurt. I didn't cry until I got back into the recovery room. I remember my parents coming in, and I just said that was really hard, and I just started breaking down. The next procedures I had to have done were a spinal tap and a PET scan. The spinal tap was to see if the lymphoma cells had spread to my spinal fluid. Again, I got local anesthetic on my back. It once again hurt really bad, and he drew out spinal fluid. He also put some chemo in my spine in case there was any cancer cells, and then that was that. The PET scan was pretty simple. All they had to do was inject me with this radioactive glucose because it would kind of absorb into any cancer cells so they could see where the tumor was and if it had spread anywhere, anything like that. So you have to sit in a dark room for an hour before. The actual scan takes about 30-45 minutes, I think. You just lay flat on this little machine. I'll try to find another picture of it, and that was that. So after all those tests, we had to wait a few days to get all of the results, and the results were actually good. They didn't seem that good at the time, but now looking back, they were very good, and I was very fortunate. The spinal tap came back clear. There was no lymphoma cells in my spinal fluid, so that was good. My PET scan showed that the tumor was localized into my chest only, and it had not spread anywhere else in my body. So thankful for that. The biopsy confirmed that I did have primary mediastinal large B cell lymphoma, which is a rare form of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There are tons of different subtypes of lymphoma, and even though it is a rare type of non-Hodgkin's, it is still treated very similar to the other type. So my chemo regimen was determined after all those tests came in. I would receive the DA-EPOCH-R regimen, which is dose adjusted. That just means that they can adjust the dose if they need to. They had to adjust mine like 3 times, I think. But all of the drugs are etoposide, prednisone, cyclophosphamide, doxorubicin, aka the Red Devil, vincristine, and rituximab, which is an immunotherapy, which helped my prognosis so much. Immunotherapy is so cool and interesting, and I'm so thankful for it. And I'm so thankful that my prognosis was over 90%. And sometimes I get survivor's guilt because I see other people, friends I know, or other people I follow in the cancer community that aren't as lucky as I was, that don't have as good of a prognosis, and I just feel so guilty because I wish everybody had over 90% chance of surviving. It's just very bittersweet to be in the cancer community, because yes, there are so many survivor stories, but there's also a lot of people that don't make it. And so that's why I like to advocate for cancer so much, because I want there to be a cure for it, for every type of cancer. I want us to live in a world where cancer doesn't exist, and that's why I will literally never stop advocating for cancer, because it's something I'm so passionate about. So if you personally are going through a diagnosis, I understand and I know how hard it is. You're not alone. The beginning of your cancer treatment or your cancer journey, whatever you want to call it, is one of the most difficult times, because you're still trying to process everything that you have cancer. There are so many unknowns and so many questions that you don't have answers to yet, and so it causes a ton of anxiety. I remember not wanting to eat. I remember just being so anxious and just crying all the time and not feeling like myself with all of the questions I had and all of the unknowns, and still trying to process everything that was happening in my life. So you're not alone. The best advice I can give you is to find a cancer community. Find a community of people that are going through the same thing you are. That is what helped me so much. I remember when I got home, I was searching for people on Instagram and social media that were going through the same thing I did. I will have a ton of social media support groups linked in the description box, but just finding people that are going through the same thing you are and know how you're feeling is just going to help so much, because your other friends, unless they've had cancer themselves, they're not going to fully understand what you're going through, and that can be kind of frustrating at times, just because you feel like you have no one to talk to. So having those people that are either survivors themselves or patients going through it too, it's just going to help you so much. So that's the best advice I can give you, is to find a community. And you can also reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram's Life with Lauren May. DM me, I will talk to you, I will help you, we can talk about it. Or you can leave any questions or any advice you need in the comments below. I always try to respond. I started losing my hair about 2 weeks on the dot after I finished my first round of chemo. I was aware that I was going to lose my hair, something my doctors and I discussed, like one of the first things we talked about when I was diagnosed. So I was prepared for it, and I remember one day I was combing through my hair and I was kind of expecting it to happen soon, and sure enough, more hair came off than usual, and just every day more and more hair started falling out, and it turned into clumps falling out. So my hair started getting very patchy. I remember like hairline was going all the way back behind my ear, and I just knew it was time to shave it, because I wanted to shave it before cancer took all of it, kind of taking control over my situation. And it was a very emotional experience. Definitely shed some tears. It was just very weird. It was one of those moments where it felt really real to me that I actually had cancer. Was looking at myself in the mirror for the first time bald. I actually had 3 moments like that. One was the one I just told you about, when I looked in the mirror for the first time and saw myself bald. The second one was when I first got home from the hospital and I was trying to take a hot shower, and I couldn't even finish washing my hair before I got so weak, and I basically like hopped out of the shower, collapsed on the ground, basically blacked out. I just remember my ears started ringing, the room started closing in, my vision went black. It was very scary, and in that moment I was like, whoa, my body actually like is struggling right now. That was one of the first moments that I actually felt like I was sick. And then the third moment was one night I was laying in my room and I was just kind of reflecting on everything that's happened. I just kind of started to think, why me? Out of all the people in the world, why did I have to get cancer? Why is this my life? I'm never gonna live a normal life again. That's so not true. There is life after cancer. It is gonna be normal again, but it will be a new normal, and you kind of have to grieve your old life, because it's never gonna be the same again. You will have a new normal. I look at old pictures of myself and I'm like, who is that girl? She's totally different. My chemo schedule was I would go in every 2 weeks for chemo. I would go in on a Thursday and I would leave on a Tuesday. I was in there for about 5 days because I usually left Tuesday morning. I did have to receive my chemos inpatient. A lot of times people will just go into the outpatient clinic and receive chemo that day and get to go home, but I actually had to stay overnight and be monitored because my chemo literally had to be going 24/7 until I was done with that round. I had to spend 5 days in the hospital every 2 weeks. I basically lived at the hospital for 6 months because when I wasn't in for chemo, I was going in for checkups and labs and stuff. So now talking about side effects, my side effects weren't too bad. I know a bunch of people have it way worse than I do. I had a little nausea, but not as much as I was expecting to have. So I really prayed, my whole family prayed for minimal side effects, and that's exactly what I got, and I was so grateful for that. Some other symptoms I had were mouth sores when my counts would drop. If you hear patients say counts a lot, it means that when you go in for lab, you you get your blood draw, and your goal is to get below 500 white blood cells per little capsule thing. When your counts drop below 500, a lot of patients go to below 100. That means that you basically have no immune system, so you have to be very careful about getting sick and getting infections. When your immune system's low like that, you also get a bunch of mouth sores, and that is probably one of the most annoying and painful side effects are the mouth sores, because you can't eat, can't drink without it hurting. I also experienced pretty bad body aches after every chemo infusion for about 2 days. It just basically kind of felt like I did a full body workout and literally every inch of my body was sore. It was a very weird feeling. Another annoying side effect was fatigue and chemo brain. If you go back and watch all of my videos from when I was in treatment, I talk so slow. I go back and watch my videos sometimes and I just look so out of it. I'm like, who is that girl? I should have edited my videos better. It was the chemo brain and the fatigue. I was just so out of it the whole time. I also had to flush my PICC line every night with saline to make sure it was still flowing correctly and there wasn't like a blood clot on the end of the tube. I had to wrap it up in saran wrap every night before taking a bath. I took baths because one, of that traumatic experience I had when I first got home, and two, it was just easier to control if water got on it or not, because you're not supposed to get water on your PICC line. But towards the end of treatment, I actually found this arm wrap thing off Amazon, which was a lifesaver. So I will have that link in the description, and if you have a PICC line, this will help you so much with taking baths and showers. It's waterproof, it's got like a little suction thing, it goes on your arm, and it helps from water getting in there. So I went in for my last round of chemo on December 16th, 2019. It went very smoothly, the same as it went every other round. I was just really excited because it was my last one. And when I was leaving the hospital Tuesday morning, all of the nurses from the floor were out there clapping for me with signs and stuff. It was so sweet. I also got my PICC line removed that day. I'll put a picture of it right here. And that was kind of like my last goodbye to cancer treatment. I was like, goodbye PICC line. I wanted to get that thing out as soon as I could. So yeah, and it was also pretty painless. I didn't feel it at all. So after treatment was the big PET scan, the end of treatment PET scan to determine if you were cancer free or not. I have a whole vlog of that experience, ringing the bell and everything, if you want to go watch that. But I had the worst scan-anxiety with that scan because it was my biggest scan yet. It was going to determine whether or not I was cancer free and done with treatment, or if I needed any further things that we're not going to talk about. And it all went great. I was officially in remission. I got to ring the bell that day. It was so exciting, and that's literally the end. Like, I've been in remission since then. I've been in remission for over a year now. I'm so grateful for my health. I go in every 3 months for checkups, but soon I'll spread those out to about 4 or 6 months because I am a year out. They try to monitor you very closely for about 2 years after treatment, because that is like the high risk time, I guess. And then after 2 years, you really space out your appointment. And then after 5 years, you're considered cured. So yeah, that's my whole cancer story through my whole entire journey. The reason why I put journey is because cancer patients make fun of the word cancer journey because it's so overused, but it's fine. So throughout my whole entire experience, I really tried to stay close to God. I journaled a lot. I did a ton of Bible studies, and I really think that was a way for me to kind of stay strong and stay positive, was my faith. So that was a huge factor that played into how well I got through treatment, and I'm so grateful for that. I don't want to say I'm glad I got cancer, but I'm grateful for the experience because I've learned so much. I've gotten so many opportunities. I've gotten to work with LLS on their Light the Night event. I'm an ambassador for LLS, so I post videos on their TikTok. You might see my face on their TikTok. I have gotten to work with SurvivorNet, which is another amazing resource for cancer patients. They have SNTV, and I did bookends for some of their films, so you'll see my face on there too. We've gotten to work with Stand Up to Cancer on their Kiss Cancer Goodbye campaign. I'm just overwhelmed with gratefulness and these organizations I've gotten to work with, and I hope to implement that into my career and my job when I'm done with college. So there is life after cancer. There are so many amazing opportunities that come from this experience, and I believe that through every situation we go through, we can find something good, and I've definitely found multiple good things that have come out of my bad situation. So shortly after I was announced in remission, I got an email from my dream school that I wanted to go to, that I had been accepted into that university, and I could not believe it. I thought it was a joke at first. I had to call someone there, and I was like, is this for real? And they were like, yep, sure is. I was so excited and grateful, and in that moment I kind of knew that God was preparing me for getting diagnosed with cancer. I had to trust God's timing. He just worked in my life, and I was able to get accepted into my dream university that I wanted to go to. The only unfortunate thing is that I've had to do online classes ever since. I have been going there because of the pandemic. I basically got my life back for about 2 months, and then Corona came and I had to go back into quarantine, back locked in the house. Because of my underlying health conditions, I've had to be very careful. So I am very grateful and happy to say that I am getting the COVID vaccine this week, my first dose, and then obviously I'll get my second dose in a few weeks. I'm documenting that whole thing, so you will see a video soon. I'm just so grateful to take that step in the right direction and get past this pandemic, because it has just put my life on pause again for way too long. So that is kind of my cancer slash lymphoma story. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you like this video, comment down below if you need anything, any questions, any advice. I will definitely respond, and also make sure you subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I will see you next week.